Segment 3 of Waterloo 1938 begins here with the Arcade Tavern, which is the tavern that was on the very, very corner of North Monroe and West Madison Street, owned by William Bibow. That huge building has a Bibow name at the top yet, and it's had a pool room on the main floor and a bowling alley in the basement. And so William Bibow was the owner at that point in time. Next, we go into a scene that's a fellow looking over a railing, and we can only figure out that railing is where the Mode Theater is now. Before it was built, it was the last building built on that street between the Wentz store and the community building. Anyhow, this is a scene that is staged for the film, of course. A fellow spots something, and he runs up South Monroe Street to the Four Corners, into the gas station at the Four Corners, gets on the telephone, and he's explaining that he's seen a smoke from a fire. And so he runs back down, and the rest of it's kind of self-explanatory. Here comes a volunteer fireman, and here comes coming from all over the place, and they get into the fire station, which is the basement or the ground floor of the city hall. Pretty soon you'll see the trucks come out. One of them might very well be the Seagrave truck that the fire department still has that they use for parades and so on. The trucks head down East Madison Street, going east on East Madison Street. When they get down to near the end, they take a right on Railroad Avenue, heading for the shoe factory. And you'll see that the hoses are laid and ladders erected and so forth. So they were very realistic about this scene that they're doing. As the firemen put the trucks away and so on, this gives me an opportunity to tell you about an upcoming scene that needs some description. The scene will be of the basement of the old post office. Now, the old post office existed just east of the alley, or next to the alley that is east of the Waterloo Building Center. Here they come up out of the basement, out of their workplace, and the last guy up is L.E. Perry. That is the post office. Right there are the pillars you see. And they're going down the street to their new building, which you saw in some of the previous things, which is a brand new building built on the corner of South Jackson and West Madison Street. As we look at these buildings, as the workers are walking down that way, I want you to look at the buildings behind or that they have walked past, because the white building is Dr. John Ehlenfeld's veterinary clinic, and the building behind that is a blacksmith shop. So there they are going into their building, their brand new Waterloo Courier building, and that's L.E. Perry, that last guy going in there. Next scene we're going to see is in front of the post office, and the guy on the right is Bill Higgins. Bill Higgins is Jim Brown's grandfather, and Jim lived with him all his life, and Roz Brown's grandfather as well, the fellow that lived in Waterloo in the summer times. Next, we're going to see coming across the street a guy that some of the old-timers will remember, and that's Dr. Allen. Doc Allen's coming right there. He is coming across the street. And the following segment will be the other end of the business district, the Texaco gas station. This was another of the full-service gas stations. At this point in time, there were 3 of them in town. One of the 2 guys that are going to be shown in this thing is a guy by the name of Clarence Barney Modal. And you'll see him here. Apparently they're ready for inspection today. And Barney will be the one on the left. Yes, on the left. The next scene will be a group of young fellows sitting on the hood of a truck in front of Schmidt's Paint Store, which is across the street from what is now the bowling alley, which you'll see in the background when they change the camera around so you can look past the truck. There's the bowling, what is now the bowling alley. At that time it was a Ford garage, and that's Schmidt's Paint Store. I'm sorry, that's Heine's Tavern, I think. There's a tavern coming up here called Heine's. There it is. That tavern still exists. That location is the MT Bar today. That's Heine Heights' tavern. That's Kenny Heights' father. Kenny Heights married Shirley Chilson. For some of you older folks will remember him and Shirley. The next scene is going to be of the furniture store on North Monroe Street. There it is, owned by Walter Schwant, who was also the undertaker. In those days, there was a lot of, in various towns, that was the normal. Undertakers had a furniture store. That's just that was their business in addition to being an undertaker. This one is owned by Walter Schwant. You'll see him coming out here. They're carrying some furniture out. He's the guy on the left, the older guy with the glasses. Walter ended up being mayor at one point in time. He built a house up on the corner of South Jackson and West Knowlton Street and lived up there for some time, right across the road from where I lived. Now they're going to move this furniture down to a location, this lawn furniture. I think perhaps that lawn furniture is going to, as they drive up the driveway here, I think perhaps that's the driveway of the house and on North Monroe Street that Art Setz owned for many, many years. Actually, at one time prior to that, the Meitner family lived there because it was the farmhouse for the Ryder farm, which was a whole addition from there to the north. I think that woman sitting there could very well be Margot Setz Cronin, but I'm not sure of that. The next scene you're going to see is a scene down near downtown again. There's Cobby. Cobby, I don't know what his first name was. Coblitz was the second name. He was a harness maker, and that was right next to the Setz insurance office. They split the building. I mean, he had half it. The Art Setz had the other half. This guy was on the right. Soon we're going to go across the street from there. We're going to look at the creamery. That's what it was known in my day. Prior to that, originally it was a Roach and Siebert cold storage building. Then it became the creamery, and later on became known as the Dairyland building. There it is. Owned by, at this point, it was owned and operated by Hans Nielsen, H.P. Nielsen, who was a Norwegian, I guess, guy that I knew, and he spoke a little broken, and he's quite a fellow. He has employees come out on the street so you can see them. A couple of the office gals there, and then there's a delivery wagon. There were several delivery wagons in town. This one apparently is just for milk or creamery products. Here comes the employees out of the building to have their pictures taken. The next scene you're going to see is a pea wagon moving down North Monroe Street, heading for the Four Corners to turn right to go out to the canning factory. And I got to start telling you in advance about this because there's a story that goes with it. All the kids in Waterloo in them days knew about the pea wagons, and when we'd see one coming, we'd run out in the street and we'd go around. As they moved along, we'd pull pea vines off the back of them so we could sit in our backyards and shuck peas and eat peas. Anyhow, one particular time, my buddy and I, Chick Foley, we decided they were moving too fast. So Chick says to me, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to go out and lay down in the middle of the road. They'll have to stop for me. Then you grab the peas." Well, he did that. While he was laying there, as the tractor was approaching, however, Somebody else was approaching from the other direction, and Blanche Chadwick got out of the car and grabbed Chick and just whaled his hinder, and that was the end of that episode. Following that, we see here a beekeeper, and I didn't even know there was one in Waterloo. Maybe he wasn't when a little later on when I was around town, but there's a beekeeper. And following that, we're going to see a couple of young ladies showing the latest fashions. And then he's pretty careful with him, but he's good. You notice he doesn't wear any netting or anything. He's good. He's got them bees under control, or they have no fear of him, I guess I should say. So they don't sting him. I don't know who the guy was. Here's the latest in fashions being modeled by a couple of young ladies. And following that, you're going to see the Wilkie and Lemke feed store. Now, that was right next to the river in where the bank parking lot is today. They were a feed store, but they mostly dealt with chickens and eggs and ducks and what have you. And lastly here, we're going to see a garden scene. We think this is probably Al Wiedeworth's wife, Al Wiedeworth, the jeweler. This would have been over there on the corner of, up behind Howard Wiedeworth. And it's just, we think that's Cora Wiedeworth, but we don't know for sure. Another scene of another Waterloo dog, and that's about it for Segment 3.